Hey there, and welcome to the Dynamics Hot Dish Podcast, serving up stories and knowledge on Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. This is what's hot in Dynamics. You're now joining Merlin Schweiger, Liz McGlennon, and Ashley Steiner. An example of a customer experience that set expectations in the wrong way thanks to FedEx. So
I like the setup there, Merlin. That was a great setup.
You got to give a good setup. So I had a package that was coming. It was, I don't know, a hard drive or something, some computer part. FedEx sends me an email. It's like, all right, your package is on the way. It's, scheduled to arrive on Wednesday, whatever the day was. Wednesday shows up. The FedEx site is still telling me that my package is expected to be delivered that day by the end of the day. But the last update in the tracking is it left California or something. So there's no way that it's already in Minnesota, because obviously I've gotten packages before. I know that they show when it arrives in Minnesota, and then they show when it gets loaded on the truck, and then they say that it's out for delivery. But during the entire day, it was oh no, your package is coming between 11:45 and 2:30 p.m. And I'm like, there's no way that my package is coming in that window. But let's see. I get to the end of that window, 5 minutes after the window, and then it's oh yeah, we have no idea when your package is coming. And then the next morning, they're like, oh, now it's actually arrived and on the truck and whatever. And I was like,
so did you get it the next day?
I did get it the next day. But if they had just told me that it was coming a day later than originally estimated, fine. What I was upset about.
I have so many comments.
I know. Ashley, you go. Well, go ahead.
Well, my first thing is, Merlin, how do you have nothing better to do but then to just sit there and refresh FedEx for 3 hours waiting to see if it updates on your
I wasn't just sitting there endlessly refreshing, but I was checking on it periodically. I was very eager to receive this particular hard drive.
Just a day late too. It's not like you had to wait days or weeks. It wasn't super delayed. And I was gonna say all of shipping's really messed up right now, because I heard something weeks ago, and it was supposed to come on Monday by 7, and then it was Tuesday by 7, and then it was Wednesday by 7, and it was in Minnesota on the truck, and it's they just never got to my house.
Yep.
With it. But every day it said it would be delivered, and it wasn't.
Yeah, my stuff sits in Elk Grove, Wisconsin. That's south of Racine. That's where all the mail goes. It's the big UPS and FedEx hub. My stuff sits there for days.
But you're missing the point, guys. The point is not when the package actually arrived. The point
is that you had nothing better to do?
The expectations that FedEx was setting with me, the customer. If they had told me that it was coming next week and it arrived 4 days early, cool, I'm happy. If they had updated their tracking to say, oh, it hasn't arrived at the destination facility in Minnesota yet, obviously it can't come today, so let's aim for tomorrow, I would have been happy. My issue was that they set the expectation that it was going to arrive today, and it didn't arrive today, it arrives tomorrow. That's my problem.
Haven't you seen the memes where it's oh, the US Postal Service, oh, you have a package somewhere, we don't really know. And then it's FedEx, oh, it might be coming, but we don't really know where it is. And then UPS, it's oh, it's on this truck coming between this time and this time. And then it's Amazon, we're already in your house. You've never seen those memes, Merlin? The problem is you were doing FedEx.
Well, mine was UPS, and it sucks just as bad.
Okay. Yeah, because I send everything UPS because it's so
I didn't have a
for
choice.
Me, it's usually, yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
But again, I think the whole industry, Amazon, still shows up on time, but everything else is slow. I mean, there's staffing issues, and
it's because Amazon can't contracts it all, which I found pretty interesting. I didn't know that they contract with local delivery places to deliver their stuff.
Right.
So
again, my point is not the speed of delivery. My point is the expectation setting along the way. It's a lesson in customer experience. My experience, I got angry for no good reason. You're right. It arrived the next day. Not actually a problem. It was still
you're
3 or 4 days from order to delivery.
Still angry, Merlin. You were
yes.
exuding anger over this. And how long ago was this? Months, weeks?
No, it was at least 2 weeks ago.
I mean, you have a valid point, though, that I think holds true to our industry, is that if that expectation wouldn't have been set and the communication had been updated, you wouldn't have been as upset about it coming a day later.
Fine.
And so that holds true to scope or design or like decisions like that if you're doing like a deployment or a project of like what are the functionality and timeline expectations of what we're going to get.
Right.
I can't
Yes.
believe Liz is validating you right now. But you're right. Liz.
Sorry,
Like, I don't
Ashley.
disagree.
I mean, Merlin, I don't know why you're complaining. Get over
I can't
it.
believe that Liz is validating my perfectly valid opinion about setting expectations.
That's awesome. But it is, I agree. I just like to make fun of you, Marilyn.
I know. It's fine. I'm done. We can move on.
Today we're talking about nothing to do with like anything Merlin just talked about, but we're talking about like reporting. So ways to report on your data in Dynamics or a Power App and the options that you have. So I know we were thinking about talking about dashboards, which are native in Dynamics, and then when and why you would use those versus something like a Power BI. So I don't know if either of you have thoughts that you want to get started with, or here's the question, like, is Dynamics the only thing that has something like a dashboard, Dynamics CE, or can you, like a native dashboard, does F&O, it's not F&O anymore, BC. I guess I'm just wondering, like, if you were using one of the other Dynamic Stack products, like, do you have to use Power BI?
Not necessarily. I know that BC has like it's like a sort of a dashboard, like a homepagey kind of thing. I think you can put charts on it, but I don't think that they're nearly as exciting as like Dynamics dashboards with like charts. It's probably mostly lists of data.
It's not as
Okay.
configurable, or there's not as many options.
I don't think so, but I don't know. If you're a BC person and listening, don't quote me on that.
Yeah, but
Probably
let us
wrong.
know too, right?
Or yeah, comment and tell us.
It's true. And I have absolutely no idea about F and SCM, which is
I'm never
F&O.
gonna get that right.
I know, that's why I didn't try. I'm like, I'll let Merlin give the right acronym.
I know, I'm just gonna keep calling it F&O and let Merlin correct me.
It's fine. No, so I think for the most part, like the CE, the CRM line is kind of the only spot that gets like the dashboards that we know of with all the configuration and like charts and stuff.
Well, and you could build one for just a model-driven app too. Like you don't have
Yeah.
to
That's
be in
true.
one of the CE first-party apps. Like those come with the pre-can sales, marketing, customer service dashboards, but you could just build one from scratch in a model-driven app as well. I feel like dashboards in CE haven't improved. I mean, we've had small improvements, but I feel like they haven't improved or changed very much from when they were introduced.
When were they introduced? I feel like
2011.
2011.
2011.
Okay.
I remember that upgrade because we got all these new things and dashboards were on
That
that
was,
list.
we were working at this together, Liz, at the same
Yes.
company, because I
Yep.
remember my boss at the time was like, oh, look at all this stuff Liz is building, and why can't you build it? Oh my God, I hope she's not listening. So
yeah, and
was
I
kinda-
remember our
that.
upgrade from 4.0 to 2011.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. I remember implementing 4.0 and people being like, well, how do I get a dashboard? Salesforce has a dashboard. And me being like, yeah, I can't actually do that for you. Sorry. I think there's this add-on from this other partner.
I can build you an SSRS report.
Yeah.
Which those have
Yes.
kind of died, I think, because of the reporting capabilities that have come out with like the dashboards and now with Power BI.
Mhm.
Well,
Well, and
with online.
Yeah. I feel like Microsoft is sort of trying to absorb them into the Power BI paginated reports.
Got it. I mean, so obviously the dashboards natively and Dynamics have been around for quite some time. I mean, is there ever a case that you would use those versus Power BI?
All the time. They're free.
I have to ask, right?
And they're
Because-
easy. I think they're easier to build too. Like I think they're much faster and simpler. Maybe that's because like I've been working with them longer, or because I'm like traditionally a CRM person first. But I think they're just easier for someone to learn, and they're free. And you also have the concept of just like the personal dashboard, which I think empowers managers or end users to give like a tailored view of what they want to see as their homepage.
I think one of the best descriptions, I can't take credit for it. It was somebody that I used to work with who positioned it this way, is that the dashboards that come out of the box should be like your daily work sort of like driver. So like his point was, you should come into the system and land on your dashboard, and all the stuff that's on your dashboard should be driving what you're going to do today. Versus looking at something in Power BI is going to be more like analysis, or like diving more into the data or what the data is trying to tell you, or looking at trends over time or something like that. But that dashboard should be like, this is my day today. Like, here's a list of tasks that I have to do. Like, here's a couple charts of things that like tell me what I need to do.
I agree. I mean, you can easily take action on a record from a native dashboard, but like imagine trying to like modify or do some action on that record through Power BI. Like it's not going to be as easy.
It's a little more complicated.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in your guys' experience, do you create a lot of custom dashboards then, or do you use the out of the box ones?
Who uses the out of the box ones? Has anyone ever used an out of the box dashboard?
Yeah, I
I know
use it
I've
in
used-
demos.
Yeah, same. Or like when you're trying to sell a new company, like where you're onboarding new companies.
Mhm.
Yeah, totally.
But that's literally it. Like nobody, I don't think I've ever met any company who's like, oh, this dashboard tells me everything that I need. Like, thanks.
No. It'd be like been on a project where you're not adding any custom fields or changing the form.
Yeah.
No. So like the dashboard's the same thing.
So what do people need to know then? I mean, like if you're not using the out of the box dashboards, they're not useful. Like what do you need to know when you're building your own custom dashboards for your team?
It's a good
Like what
question.
advice would you give people?
I mean, if you look at it as this is supposed to drive my work for the day, look at the out of the box dashboard and then imagine that you're like the generic salesperson or generic service person that Microsoft engineers have in their minds when they build these out of the box dashboards. Be like, okay, I can see what they're trying to do here, but only 20% of this is relevant to my business. So I'll take that 20%, put it on my dashboard, and then fill out the other things that I need on there. So like, think about what are the things that I would want to see in the morning to tell me what I have to do. Well, I need to see maybe my list of open leads, and I want those sorted by, I don't know, a score if I'm scoring them. Or I need to see like maybe you're using goals and you need to see like where am I in regards to my goal so that I know like do I need to really push hard to close deals today, or can I coast and build pipeline, or whatever else you might need to do.
I think you should make them really tailored to the persona, like the role that's using them, because you can control who sees which dashboard based on the app that it's put in and on security role. And so there's no reason why they should use one or see one that's irrelevant to them. And so I think they should be really specific to the job. And you don't have to worry about kind of cluttering up the list because we have ways to control who sees what. And then my other thing that I always push for is like teaching people how to get to the grid behind the chart. So like a lot of times people will be like, I want a chart and a list of like the same thing. Like I want to see open opportunities, pipeline funnel, open opportunities list. And then they're like thinking it's going to be like Power BI or like Tableau, or like if you click on the chart, it'll filter the list. And it's like, no, it won't do that. But if we just put the chart there and we teach you how to go and see the records on that next page, like then it does filter. And so I think almost every time I'm building a dashboard, like people assume it's going to work that first way I described. And it's just re-educating them on like the way it works out of the box, which no, it's maybe not as intuitive, but I think it ends up being a better experience. Now, of course, if you build one of those new,
Or
what was that?
Interactive.
Interactive.
That does that, but you can only have it for one table, like one entity,
Yep.
Yeah.
which it's like, well, how often do you have a whole dashboard with data from just one table?
Cases is the only thing that I can think of. Using it for incidents. Because if you're a customer service person and you're like, oh, I just want to filter on like the cases or tickets that I have open. That's the only situation I can think of.
Well, and you can do an interactive dashboard and put components from multiple tables, but they don't interact.
Right.
Like it'll only interact on one, which I'm like, that's just like teasing me. It's like, I don't know, like what's the point of that?
It's almost like Microsoft half released something. Weird.
Go figure. I will say
Very
though,
correct.
like interactive dashboards are new-ish, but like the other thing I really appreciate now is that they've improved the limit of how many components you can have. So for like the longest time, you could only have six, and now it's 20. And so like that's a huge improvement.
It's true.
Right. Well, they also did add chart types too, right?
Yeah,
So,
they've
like, over
improved.
time,
Yeah.
so like it's small things. It's still, I mean, to me, the dashboards always look a little dated. I hate to say it like
Well,
that,
and
but
it's
like
hard
the
to
intention of them.
control the formatting of them too. Yeah, go
It
ahead.
is. No. I think so I was gonna say, so they've made, I just think it looks dated, but they are making dated improvements where like they add a chart type. But Liz, to your point, yeah, like it's hard to control like where things sit.
Well, it used to be easier. Like pre-unified interface, you had more you could do in the XML to change the chart format than we can now. Like they've deprecated like a ton of the options. And so I've not done a lot with that like recently, but like I feel like at least half of the options have been taken away with what you could do with the UI of a chart. And I'm sure you know, that's not a priority because Power BI is an option where you can do whatever
Right.
you want.
But
And
I
that's
feel
what I
like
was going to
this
say.
is- oh, go ahead, Marlene.
It's like if I agree, they do look kind of dated and you do have limited control. So then the answer is Power BI. If you want it to look better and do more, go to Power BI.
But I feel like they have I mean, we started this conversation with like the purpose of each, right? And this is how I kind of feel about workflows and Power Automate too. I know you'll talk to an MVP and they'll say, oh, workflows are, you know, deprecated. They're not even there, but like they're not. They're still there. They still have its purpose. I feel like it's the same thing with dashboards and Power BI is like, it's that interactive, quick thing. You want to be able to see, I mean, Power BI updates once a day. And you know what I mean? Like if you have that automatic refresh, I don't know if you can do it more often than that. And if it
You can.
does it slow things down? I don't know. I've not done a ton in Power BI, but you know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying though is that like as a salesperson, I don't want to open up multiple windows and like have this done. Well, then this leads you into embedding a Power BI dashboard into Dynamics,
Mhm.
right? You have that option
If you have
And-
the pro license.
if you have pro license.
Well, you
Can
don't
you
need
use the viewer license for that? That comes with the E3 license.
No.
There's
I
this
don't think
concept
so.
of a viewer license now.
Is there? Oh man,
Mhm.
then I don't know.
At least that's what I think that we should probably add that in the show notes because
Yeah.
I've heard people talk about a viewer license for Power BI and it's included in like an E3 and the E5 license
Oh,
Office. For those of us those who don't know, Office licenses, there's called an E3 and an E5 and it gives you access to different stuff. So I will definitely do the research and add that in the notes, or if somebody knows, please comment. But I've heard that there's this viewer license now.
oh,
But you can't get it separately. It's just included.
sure.
Yeah, but
I
like
mean-
E3 is it's on a super high level of an Office license. So like I feel like that would include a lot of kind of corporate roles and wouldn't then, you know, add that extra cost of $10 a user a month. That was just always such a deal breaker of like, do we really want to spend all this extra money on Power BI when we have this tool that is included that gets us most of the way there?
Yeah. I mean, so you don't need to have the pro license to embed a Power BI report in your own Dynamics for yourself. You just can't share it with anybody.
Yeah, and what user is gonna know how to build the Power BI report that they want?
Well, you just do it for them, and then you do a screen share and take control and upload the file for them.
That's really
yeah.
scalable
No,
to do for everyone.
I'm not
I was
saying
gonna
it's
say
great.
if your end user can build a Power BI dashboard, I think they're in the wrong role. Just-
Right. Like that's just I just don't see that being people always
No.
share that example or that like workaround, and I just don't think it's a realistic workaround.
You're
Well, it's
right.
not
Never seen
scalable
it.
depending on how many salespeople you have. I mean, think about how many. If you're a global company, you could have thousands of salespeople in customer service. Like that's just not realistic.
No. And then what happens when it gets updated? You have to do that again.
Well,
Yep.
if you've got thousands of salespeople and you want them all to use Power BI, then you get Power BI Premium, and it doesn't matter. You can do anything you want,
That's true.
and then
So I
you can
guess-
refresh 48 times a day.
Okay. So I think that that's like that's the caveat though, right? Is like the pricing. So every company I've ever worked at is like, ooh, 10, like that's an additional fee. And then you look at it and you're like, okay, that's $10 a month. Like it sounds so nominal, but like when you have how many ever users, it can add up pretty quickly. So because I've had Microsoft literally, oh my gosh, I'm totally begging on Microsoft in this one, but I've literally had them like laugh at me. They're like, it's $10 a month. Like you guys can't afford that. It's like, okay, but we have 300 people that we need. I mean, that adds up
But per
really
person,
quickly.
it adds
Per
up.
person.
Yeah,
It
Yeah.
does add up very quickly.
I agree.
Yeah.
What are the other like benefits? Like when else would people want to use Power BI over a native dashboard?
High level, somebody who doesn't need access to Dynamics. I guess that's what I always think of. So like,
Mhm.
I mean, I can't imagine any executive I've ever known logging into Dynamics and looking at one of those dashboards, but if they just had a little thing on their icon on their computer to click open Power BI and it was just there for them. I mean, that's like the key example I always think of.
Mhm.
And they look pretty, so it looks great to like stakeholders.
Well,
and
there's
shareholders.
just so much more visualization options there.
and a lot more like interactivity. So to your
Mhm.
point, like you can have a bunch of different charts and lists and things, and they'll all filter each other as long as you've got all the relationships set up. And like you can just, you can do so much more actual analysis on your data instead of just like looking at it. Instead of looking at a report, you can actually like dig in and see what's going on a lot better in Power BI than you can in anything else.
And you can combine data sources. It doesn't have to be Dataverse data.
Well, I remember when I changed, I manage our LinkedIn Sales Navigator licensing here because it connects to Dynamics. I remember when I changed sending the reporting into Power BI, because now I do all of our reporting on how people are using it. And like the sales managers were just like blown away, like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy that you can look at things like this, right? And it's all like, again, interactive and they can dive in. And it was one of those just like, they thought it was, and all it is an export, right? Because there's a connector between Power BI and LinkedIn, pretty
Sure.
easy to set up. But for them, it was like I mean, just that showcase value, I think just like how it looks is impressive to people.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's not even getting to like for your executives, if they can't even bother to like click on a button to go look at it, you could just subscribe them and they'll just get it in their email whenever you tell them, and they can look at it on their phone. There's a mobile app.
Which people still want that.
It's
They
crazy,
do.
right?
They
How many people
do.
still want emails.
Yeah, like I feel like, can I get a report emailed to me? Like comes up a lot on Regix.
Mhm.
Yeah. Which is a little bit weird. Like,
It's
no,
a
I don't
little
need more email.
concerning, but I mean, at some point, if that's what they want, that's what they want. Like you're
It's
not
true.
like, you can't force them to change kind of how they're managing their work.
No, it's true.
I just feel like I get so many emails. I would overlook the ones that have a report in them, but I'm also not at the level where like emailing, or you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'll just go build the report myself. So
Right.
I'm not an executive, is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, not yet. We'll give you a couple of years.
Okay, thanks, Brandon.
No problem.
Goals. You gotta have goals, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what else? I mean, are there any other like attributes of when you would take Power BI? I mean, there's a ton, right? I feel like we've talked about that, but what other use cases would you roll out a Power BI dashboard instead of a dashboard inside of Dynamics?
Well, I feel like anytime you want to do something and you can in Dynamics, you go to Power BI.
Yeah, and that could be visuals. It could be aggregating data sources. It could be doing more complex analysis. I mean, you could even get into like some of the AI stuff that you can plug into Power BI. You can embed Power Apps in Power BI now, I think, too. So from like that
Really?
from that usability standpoint, you could theoretically have a Power BI report with a little Canvas app built on it. Or if I picked something in the Power BI report, it could populate in the Canvas app and I could make updates. I could write those updates back to something.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Sounds like a good session topic someday, Merlin, that we should demo.
Yeah, I probably have to actually build one someday first.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that they're also, I think the biggest thing here is that they're investing in Power BI, right? Microsoft
Right.
is.
Yes.
So that's where you're going to see, you know, your improvements, your changes. I don't think like we've said it, there's not much change that's happening to the dashboards and Dynamics.
No, and I wouldn't expect them to put much more investment there because they've got Power BI, and it would be a better use of their money to make that integration better and easier than, you know, building two different dashboarding tools.
Well, and Power BI is the leading BI tool, and not even in the Microsoft stack. Like I'm pretty sure the last Gartner report I looked at had it above Tableau.
Yeah.
So like, of course they're gonna keep investing in that one.
Uh-huh.
Right. But I think it does like raise concerns for companies. Like, so my company, for example, like we keep saying, oh, let's just have our BI person build that. You know, we need reporting and all this stuff. We don't have a BI person. Like you need to have somebody who can actually build that stuff, and that where like even if you have a Dynamics person on staff, it doesn't mean that they're automatically going to know Power BI. So it is an investment. It's not just an investment in licensing, and is an investment in staffing as well, or consultant, you know, getting a good consulting company to come in, a partner.
It's another kind of specialty or I don't know, side skill set. Like, yeah, does it help to have Dynamics experience? Yes. And like understanding the data structure is super important. So like you could get a BI person, but if they don't understand your Dataverse data structure, like they would probably need to collaborate with that team. But yeah, I mean, like DAX, I think is kind of hard to learn. And like, there is a different skill set there, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what I will say though is after you have an expert sort of build your data sets, it's pretty easy for like a power user to just like pick the data set, like this is my sales data set, and then just like check boxes and drag things into charts and be like, boom, now I've got this sweet dashboard and I don't have to worry about any of the behind the scenes stuff. But you do need to have that like kind of data expertise to build the data set in the first place to give people what they're going to need to use.
Well, I
Mhm.
think that's where a partner really comes in, because you know, it's one of those like they can build it, and then if you have more questions or want to add more, you can bring them in ad hoc, right? Because you don't need a, like you said, I could probably build a, you know, a chart or a dashboard or something in Power
Something
BI, but
basic is
that
easy, but if you want to
data
do
set-
anything yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I
I
tried
know
to do it
there's
before.
I was gonna say, like, I'm not a Power BI expert, but I've talked to people that are, and I know there's plenty of best practices too, and that there's, you know, different paths to accomplish a similar thing, but like some are much more optimal than others. So like if you're a rookie Power BI person, like talk to an expert or get help from a, you know, a consultant, a partner, because you might get it to work, but it might not be the best way to get there.
And it might not be
Right.
scalable. So if you do want
Right.
to add more data sources later, because I know that was probably it's what I did, right? I was a rookie BI person and I built it to work, but like, you know, as you add more tables or things in, it just, who knows if that was scalable.
Right.
I can
Right.
tell you it wasn't pretty.
There's some bit there about like you got to use an OData filter in your initial query so that you only pull in the data that you need. Otherwise, you pull in like every record in your contacts table and then you filter it. Well, then it's going to be slow. And so now your refresh is going to take forever. Little things like that.
Yeah, you're already speaking things that I have no idea what that means. So
It's fine.
Not a smile. So I want to ask, since we're kind of talking about this broader reporting topic, like does a custom report or a traditional Dynamics report ever have a role anymore? So I'm talking about like those out of the box reports we get, or like, you know, fetch XML custom reports. Like I feel like they rarely come up for me these days, but like, is there any use case to use those?
so I'll speak for myself. Everyone loves to hit that run report button, and then when they click on something and it doesn't work, it's really frustrating. Because like we don't make
You should just take the button away.
I would, well, yeah, we have a laundry list of things
Just
that we would like to
hide
do.
it
Oh,
on the
well,
command bar. It would
okay,
take like
okay.
5 minutes.
I know, Liz. Okay, you guys can leave me alone. So yes, but I would say that I've actually replaced anything that I would have used a report for with like a Word template or something like that.
Hmm.
So like the most prominent case that I think that I've used reports for is like a download of account data, right? Like salespeople always want to just get like a high level of the account data, things that are going on in the account. I know that there's a ton of other use cases, but as somebody who's worked mostly with sales, that's what they've always wanted.
Like a summary of one
A
account
summary.
or a list of all accounts?
So a summary of one account. They
Sure.
want to go to one account, they want to hit a button, and then like just the highlights or details so they can print it. Every salesperson wants to print everything. Who knows why? But they want to print and take that with them. You do what you have to do. But I've moved a lot of that into Word template.
That makes
So
sense.
it's not for me, I have not built a report in years.
Well, I feel like it's gonna look a lot better and you have a lot more control in a Word template than you
Right.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true, but you can't do, I don't think you can do math in the Word templates, can you?
No.
No.
So if you need to like do calculations and you also don't have a Power BI license, and then sometimes, yes, I actually in the last 6 months I've built their SSRS reports
Mhm.
because somebody wants to print them and they have to do math and they don't have Power BI. So they were already using one and that they had actually built with the wizard. And so I just like kind of took that and refactored it a little bit. And I was like, all right, here we go. We got it.
The math is a good point, like the calculations,
Mhm.
because there's not an awesome way to do that otherwise without Power
I'm
BI.
I'm sure you could like work around it, maybe with like build some calculated fields that like calculate themselves and then like still drop them into Word or whatever. But like,
Or put them on a view and like export that to Excel.
and
or-
that might work too. But it's also very easy for somebody to just like either want to click that run report button, or actually
Mhm.
in this case, I just put it right on the sitemap. It's right there in the navigation. They just click it
Nice.
and the report like runs, and now he can print it out and then draw on it and do whatever he wants to do to it.
Well, I will say too, like when you run a report, like that's a snapshot of that data in time versus real-time data. And so if you care about like, what did this data look like a month ago compared to now, it's saving that, I guess, you could say that historically. And then like Merlin, you brought up a good point too, of like exporting it to other things. Like people always ask me like, how do I put this dashboard into PowerPoint, or what can I export it as? And I'm like, nothing, like it's here as a dashboard. And so if they really care
Take a
about that,
screenshot.
export,
Screenshot.
yeah. Yeah, but like that's not what they're asking for,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I always forget about the reports until I get people asking why there's an error message. I just forget it's there.
Well, they don't look very good,
Unless you know how to spend the time on making them look better.
which
They
is,
still
I'm
don't
sure
look that
what,
good.
yeah.
They still don't look great.
So any like lasting thoughts from you guys on dashboards, reporting overall in the space of Microsoft? I mean, I know we mentioned Tableau, but there are other BI tools, but Microsoft is clearly leading the space on it.
Yeah. No, I feel like the direction that Microsoft is going, at least in my opinion, is out of the box dashboards are probably eventually going to sort of like fade away, and they'll turn into either Power BI for like really digging into your data, or just like views and charts. And you just like my dashboard essentially becomes like a handful of charts or a handful of lists, and that drives my work. And then I can pop open a little chart because now there's a little show chart button everywhere, and I can just be like, oh, I'll just interact with my data this way. Like I feel like they're trying to make it more like you're either working with your data or you're analyzing your data, and you're kind of doing those in two separate spots.
When I feel like those roles are usually kind of separate too.
Right.
Like how many people are really in a role where they're gonna actively work on the data on a very transactional level and want this high level like analysis. Like I feel like that's usually more of like a management leadership role compared to like an individual contributor.
So I'd love to hear like from the group though, like from our audience, people listening, like what they use most commonly. Like do they use the dashboards or the reports, which I constantly forget about, BI, Power BI, how they use it all. So if you guys have any comments, like would love to hear how you guys are using it, reach out in any way. Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Dynamics Hot Dish podcast. For additional content and previous episodes, check out our website at dynamicshotdish.com, follow us on Twitter at dynamicshotdish, and subscribe to our podcast for notifications. Thanks. See you next time.